One for joining our Zoom press conference today. My name is Michael Wright. I represent the estate of Takoda Collins. I have attorney David Brannon, who's the administrator of the estate for Takoda Collins, and also the grandmother of Takoda Collins, Kelly Sandoval. So why are we here today? We are here because 10-year-old Takoda Collins was neglected, beaten, raped, forced to eat his own feces, and drowned in a bathtub. All of this was preventable. Why do we file suit? We filed suit because Montgomery County Children's Services has blood on its hands. They let Takoda down by failing to do their job. I filed suit to make sure that this doesn't happen to another child in Montgomery County. I filed suit to hold Montgomery County Children's Services accountable. I filed suit to pull the curtain back on Montgomery County Children's Services. While I understand that Montgomery County Children's Services has implemented a few new policies and procedures, but that is too little, too late for Takoda. They already had policies and procedures and laws in place that, if followed, would have prevented Takoda's death. Who was enforcing those policies and procedures and those laws? For example, between August 18th, 2014 and December 13th, 2019, Montgomery County Children's Services misclassified reports of physical abuse of Takoda. During the same time period, Montgomery County Children's Services failed to perform comprehensive risk assessments for Takoda, despite multiple reports of physical abuse. Montgomery County Children's Services ignored documented history of physical abuse. Montgomery County Children's Services failed to conduct appropriate interviews when they knew or were informed that Takoda was being abused. Montgomery County Children's Services failed to remove Takoda from a very violent and dangerous situation. What was Montgomery County Children's Services doing during this period of time? They absolutely failed Takoda. If one person at Montgomery County Children's Services had one person did their job, Takoda would still be alive today. It's tragic, it's unacceptable, and they must be held accountable. They are failing our children in Montgomery County, the children that need them the most. We are looking forward to the discovery process so we can reveal the failures of Montgomery County Children's Services for the taxpayers to see. This is a complete failure of leadership, and someone must be held, Montgomery County Children's Services must be held accountable. We can't let we can't fail our children like this. There's no reason at all that this should have occurred with Takoda. This, again, is a tragedy, and I am committed to make sure that we pull back the curtain and find out how these failures occurred and what we can do in the future to prevent these failures. I have David Brannon here, and I'm sure David has a few words as the administrator of Takoda Collins estate.
Thanks, Michael. As you know, I'm serving in the capacity as administrator, which means that there's two case numbers, just so everybody, a little bit of education here, are pending. The probate court appoints an administrator to bring wrongful death cases, in this case, me. It's got to be somebody that's suitable and can pursue the action. An administrator doesn't just probate assets. Obviously, Takoda probably didn't have much in terms of monetary value, but it's this concept of legal standing where you've got to have the right to stand in the shoes of somebody to bring an action on their behalf. And in this case, the administrator serves that role. They pursue the wrongful death case. In this matter, I'm not going to comment on the merits or the law. I'll leave that up to Michael and the other attorneys. My role here is to walk it through the litigation process and simply be the body and voice for Takoda. And that would mean providing information like medical records and physically go to court. And that's basically my role. I've done this in numerous wrongful death cases, serving as administrator, and I'm here to answer questions about that process. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, David. And Ms. Sandoval, she is on the line, on the call, and I would have her say a few words about Takoda, about who he was, what type of kid he was, and how he was a bright light in her life. Ms. Sandoval.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, Takoda, he was a funny kid. He loved to play. He loved Halloween. He loved just to be around his family. He loved everything about life. He loved to play games. He was only, when he left here, 5 years old. So he was just starting out. This is a tragedy that this happened, and he goes everywhere with us now. I have him here with me every day. This is just really hard. Takoda was the light of our lives. Now we're missing out on everything. He's not going to have a girlfriend. He's not going to have kids. He's not going to be a part of our lives anymore. And he loved to ride his bike and fall down in the grass because he didn't know how to ride his bike. And social services need to be held accountable for this.
Thank you, Ms. Sandoval. At this point, I'll open it up. If any of you all have questions, we're here to answer whatever questions you may have. And please, I think, raise your hand. I think there's a feature where you can raise your hand to ask a question, I believe. Or go ahead and ask the question so long as everyone's not speaking over one another.
This is Mike Campbell from Channel 7 here in Dayton. Kelly, can you talk to us just about why you think it's important for the children's services workers and the county to be held responsible for the things that you believe they didn't do to protect Takoda?
Well, this is Michael Wright. I think I'll answer that question instead of Ms. Sandoval. I mean, it's very important, for one, that we can make sure that we hold them accountable so that things will be changed such that this won't happen to another child. I mean, it's unfortunate that, Takoda had to suffer the way that he suffered, but we hope that this will prevent or allow us to put things in place to make sure that no other child has to endure what he endured.
And Michael, your first paragraph your opening statement, could you go over, again, some of the just horrible things that this young man went through?
Well, I think it's spelled out in the complaint that we filed, but he was to be brief, he was tortured. He was starved. He was beaten. He was raped. He was just the most horrific things that a child could go through, Takoda went through. And this was all preventable. There were many, many calls to children's services. There were many people that reached out to let the workers at Children's Services know that Takoda was being mistreated. His teachers contacted Children's Services. This was just a tragedy that could have been prevented. I mean, if someone would have done their job, one person would have done their job, Takoda would still be here with us.
Mike,
Right.
this is Parker Perry, Dane Daily News. I wanted to ask, the way you are stating what happened to Takoda Collins and Children's Services' role, lack of action, you seem pretty confident that you know. I guess the question is, are you confident that you are entirely correct? Because throughout our investigations, it's been tough to get those records to see exactly how Children's Services perform in the case of Takoda. Have you seen those records, or have you been able to see those records? And how sure are you that Children's Services did drop the ball?
Well, we're very positive. We have enough information that would allow us to file this suit and believe that Children's Services is primarily responsible for Takoda. And that's a very good point that you make. There are many records that at this point we don't have access to because we are not in suit, because we're not in formal discovery. So filing this lawsuit will actually give us additional access to the information that will even further make the valid conclusion that Children's Services is primarily responsible for Takoda's death.
Mr. Wright, Devereaux here with Channel 2. And just last week, Montgomery County, they did do some services reorganization and some improvements. They didn't directly attribute it to Takoda's death, but just any statement moving forward with this suit, if they are seeming to make any improvements and changes in the system?
Well, we would hope that they are making changes, but they had enough policies and procedures in place that would have prevented this death prior to them making additional changes. So yes, we're hopeful that they are making more changes, more improvements to prevent this, but this was preventable. And with there not being much transparency, we don't know specifically what those changes will be, how they be implemented, who will be following those changes. So we want to make sure that through this lawsuit that we have someone, maybe a additional overseer, maybe additional governing body that will make sure that Montgomery County Children's Services are doing what they're supposed to do to protect these children.
Mike, can you talk a little bit about the process of the lawsuit? I mean, when could we see like an answer or a decision kind of about this? How long does that usually take?
Well, we filed our lawsuit. They have 30 days to respond, and then we'll start the formal discovery process. We will send them requests for specific documentation. We will start also setting up depositions where we can take the depositions, the sworn statements of the workers at Montgomery County Children's Services that were involved in this Takoda Collins case.
And when you're doing the discovery process, is that when you'll be able to actually see probably the specifics regarding Takoda's cases and stuff?
Well, we hope so. We hope that that we will have access to the documents that we need and the documents that we request. We believe that transparency by Montgomery County Children's Services would go a long way to also give the public confidence that, taxpayers' money are being spent wisely, on this, on them.
That's what I was going to ask. Mike, this is Josh Swigert of the Dayton Daily News. One thing that we hear from readers is that Takoda's death was an absolute tragedy and changes need to be made and reforms need to be made. But there's a concern that a lawsuit like this could take resources away from the agency at a time when it's trying to make these changes and improvements. Can you respond to that?
Well, as you can imagine, the agency has resources that they have in place to deal with situations like this. So I'm not, this won't affect the resources such that they can't do their job.
Michael, in that light, could you tell us kind of what the lawsuit does ask for? What kind of relief you're asking for?
Well, we're asking for changes in policies and procedures. We're asking for someone to be a body that can oversee some of the policies and procedures that they're putting in place. We don't necessarily want children's services to govern themselves because they've not done a good job doing that. We also are asking for financial compensation for the family members, for the brother of Takoda, for Takoda's mother, for Takoda's grandmother, and for the family.
And assuming you're successful, I know you do a lot of litigation against municipalities. Do you know, does that money historically come from the municipality, or does it come from an insurance fund?
They have both. So Montgomery County Children's Services, they are insured. They have an insurance policy.
Can we just ask Sandoval, not about the case so much, but like when you were first hearing, from Wisconsin about what had happened here, can you is there any way to put into words the crushing blow that is to you and to the family when you hear what has happened to Takoda?
We were horrified. We were in shock, and we went down the same day to take care of business, to take care of Takoda at that time. And we're still in a state of shock and horrified. Thank you.
To follow up, this is this suit specifically about Takoda Collins? Because there have been other cases that have come to light in the last year. A little boy who died after being born with marijuana in his system, issue of some children being placed in a home with accused sex offenders. Is this specifically about Takoda, or are there other of those types of issues this is trying to address as well? Well,
we would hope that this specific case is about Takoda. And yes, I am aware of other failings by Montgomery County Children's Services. We are not at this point bringing action for those claims. However, we would hope that whatever we can accomplish for Takoda would also be able to be accomplished for these other individuals, including changing policies at Montgomery County Children's Services such that we won't have to have a situation like this again.
Michael, do you think this could be, this probably is a month, but do you think it's a multi-year process, this suit?
That's a great question, Mike. I don't know the answer to that. I have been in some communication with the attorney for Montgomery County Children's Services. Early on, I thought that we may not have to file suit, but as a result of those conversations, I made the decision that it was best for us to file suit in this matter.
And you're always open. If the county comes to you, you're open to making a settlement if it's fair to your clients?
Yeah, yes, we are. And that would, but we want that to include procedure changes, policy changes, and some type of oversight such that we can protect the other children that are going through this situation.
Okay. Anybody else got anything for Mr. Wright?
One last question. Kelly, could you talk about Takoda's mom? How is she doing right now with all this?
The best that she can be doing. She's having a hard time with it. We don't really talk to her that much because of the hard time she's having. She's like, she went off the grid, sort of, kind of. She moved to Texas, and then she moved back to Wisconsin. It's hard on her, and she doesn't stay in contact with us, and she changes her phone numbers all the time. So she's having a hard time.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yep.
Well, if there aren't any more questions, then we'll conclude this. But I want to thank everyone for, signing on and listening. This is such a tragic case. I mean, I've been practicing for 25 years now, and this is probably one of the most tragic and worst cases that I've ever had to deal with. And we hope that when this is all said and done, that if anything, we can prevent this from happening to any other child in Montgomery County.